15 songs, 15 different artists, 15 different years on the calendar, and underneath every single one of them, the exact same handful of guys.
I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry.
Broke, unknown, playing in a basement studio on Detroit's West Grand Boulevard for scale wages, while the names on the label belong to somebody else. You've heard every one of these records 1,000 times. Weddings, cookouts, your mama's kitchen on a Sunday morning. By the time we get to number 1, I promise you, you are never going to hear My Girl the same way again. Number 15, Shotgun, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, 1965. We're gonna break it down, baby, now. And here's what almost nobody knows. That gunshot sound that kicks the whole record off, that's not a gun. That's guitarist Eddie Willis accidentally kicking his own amplifier and somebody in the booth deciding it sounded too good to cut. Here's the thing about Shotgun. It's not really a Junior Walker record. Not the way you think. Berry Gordy heard Walker's touring band, the actual All-Stars, and decided, politely but firmly, that they weren't tight enough for a single. So he quietly swapped them out. Eddie Willis on guitar, Johnny Griffith on the organ, James Jamerson on bass, Jack Ashford on tambourine. Same guys who just finished a session down the hall for somebody else entirely. And then, pattern interrupt, Junior Walker wasn't even supposed to sing on his own song. There was a vocalist booked for the date. Guy never showed. Walker, who up to that point was strictly the saxophone player, stepped up to the mic because somebody had to. He figured they'd redo it properly later with a real singer. Gordy heard the take, that rough, almost panicked energy in Walker's voice, and said, "Leave it. That's the take." Shotgun went to number 4 pop, number 1 R&B, 4 separate weeks. It's in the Grammy Hall of Fame, and the man whose name is on it never planned on singing a note of it. You know that feeling when something you made by accident turns out better than anything you planned? That's Shotgun, a studio musician's amp falling over. A singer with stage fright who never even showed up, and a quiet rhythm section in the back nobody bothered to introduce. If you've ever built something real out of total chaos, you know exactly what that room sounded like. Number 14, Going to a Go-Go, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, 1965. Released the winter of 1965, peaked at 11 pop, number 2 R&B the following spring. You know the song, that tom-tom heavy drum pattern driving the whole thing forward, almost like a heartbeat speeding up. That's Benny Benjamin. Motown's very first drummer, the guy Berry Gordy, refused to record without. If Benny wasn't behind the kit, some sessions just didn't happen. He had this jazz background, this swing in his wrist most session drummers didn't have, and he poured all of it into one party song about a club nobody at Motown had even invented a name for yet. Here's what's wild. 14 years later, 1979, a power pop band called The Knack puts out a song called My Sharona, goes to number 1. And their own lead singer admits on the record that the drum pattern is basically a direct rewrite of Benny Benjamin's part on Going to a Go-Go. A white rock band in California more than a decade later, building one of the biggest hits of their career on a beat one black drummer laid down in a Detroit basement and never got a dime of royalties for. And Benny, they called him Papa Zeta. Story goes, a producer caught him asleep at his drum kit between takes once, and when he startled awake, he just started playing and mumbling Papa Zeta, like he'd never stopped. That's the nickname that stuck for the rest of his life. Here's the thing. Benny Benjamin's struggles with addiction were already creeping in by this point. Within 4 years, he'd be gone. 43 years old, a stroke after a decade of carrying half of Motown's catalog on his back. But right here in 1965 on this record, he's untouchable. If you've ever watched someone build something brilliant while quietly falling apart behind the scenes, you already know that's a different kind of heartbreak. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 13, Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher and Higher. Jackie Wilson, 1967. Number 6 pop, number 1 R&B, and it's got Motown's fingerprints all over it because the band playing on it was supposed to be exclusively Motown property. Here's what happened. Chicago producer Carl Davis needed a rhythm section that could make a record explode. So on a random weekend in the summer of '67, 4 of the Funk Brothers, Jamerson on bass, Robert White on guitar, Johnny Griffith on keys, Richard Pistol, Allen on drums, loaded up in a van and drove from Detroit to Chicago. Davis paid them double scale, in cash, quietly, because Berry Gordy did not let his musicians moonlight for other labels, and if he found out, there were consequences. And here's the part that still gets me. The connection runs even deeper than that. Years before Motown existed, before any of this, Berry Gordy got his very first break in the music business writing songs for one artist, Jackie Wilson. So in 1967, completely unbeknownst to Gordy, the house band he built off the back of his Jackie Wilson money snuck out the back door to go play behind Jackie Wilson himself. Pattern interrupt. Jackie Wilson originally sang it slow, like a ballad. Producer Carl Davis stopped the session and told him, flat out, that's wrong. You have to jump with the percussion. So Wilson restarted, found that joy in his voice, and cut the entire vocal in one single take in a New York studio. 6 R&B number 1s for Jackie Wilson in his career. This was the last one. Some of y'all just realized you've been dancing to a Motown record your whole life that technically isn't one. I heard you. Number 12. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell, 1967. April 1967. Number 19 pop, number 3 R&B, Modest by Motown standards, for a song that would go on to outlive almost everything else on this list. Written by Ashford and Simpson, who'd actually pitched it to Dusty Springfield first and held it back, hoping it would be their ticket in the door at Motown. It worked. The Funk Brothers and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra built this huge gospel-soaked wall of sound underneath it. And Tammy Terrell, brand new to the label, paired with Marvin for the very first time, was so nervous in the booth, so unprepared, that she ended up recording her vocal completely alone.
No matter how far, don't worry, baby, just call my name.
Marvin's parts were layered in afterward. You wouldn't know it listening back. The chemistry on that record sounds like two people who've been singing together their whole lives. Here's the part that's hard to say out loud. Within months of this song hitting the radio, Tammy started getting these headaches, migraines that wouldn't quit. Nobody around her, not Marvin, not Motown, not Tammy herself, understood yet what was actually happening. It would turn out to be a brain tumor, and it would end her career, and then it would end her life by the time she was 24. So every time you hear that opening line, "Ain't no mountain high enough," you're hearing two voices that in 1967 genuinely believed nothing could keep them apart. And the universe had other plans.
I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry. Oh, baby.
If you've ever loved someone you didn't get to keep, this one hits different. I'd argue it's the most quietly devastating song on this entire list. I know some of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. Number 11, Dancing in the Street, Martha and the Vandellas, 1964. Summer of 1964. Number 2, Pop. Number 1, R&B. Co-written by Marvin Gaye, Mickey Stevenson, and Ivy Jo Hunter. And here's a detail that surprises people every time. That driving percussive backbeat you're hearing, that's not some session drummer you've never heard of. That's Marvin Gaye himself behind the kit, with James Jamerson laying down the bass right beside him. Jamerson said later he'd never had more fun playing one single note in his entire career. Mickey Stevenson got the idea for the song watching kids in Detroit play in open fire hydrants on a hot summer day, water shooting everywhere, everybody moving like they were dancing. Martha Reeves didn't even like the song at first. She thought it didn't suit her voice. They told her, just go give it your treatment. She did. It became the biggest hit of her career. Then, pattern interrupt, some radio stations got nervous. This was the summer of 1964. Civil unrest was building in cities across the country, and program directors started worrying that lyrics naming city after city, Chicago, New Orleans, Baltimore, D.C., sounded less like an invitation to a party and more like a call to the streets in a very different sense. A few stations actually pulled back on airplay over it. So you've got a song built by a funk brother on drums, anchored by another funk brother on bass, that some people heard as pure joy and other people heard as something closer to a warning shot. Both readings are still alive today. You know what's wild? Decades later, Mick Jagger and David Bowie covered this song and put all the profits to charity. Co-writer Ivy Jo Hunter said he made more money off 2 years of that cover than 20 years of the original. Number 10, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, The Temptations, 1966. Number 13, Pop, but a monster on R&B. 8 separate non-consecutive weeks at number 1. Producer Norman Whitfield wrote this one with Eddie Holland, and he had a very specific, almost cruel plan for David Ruffin's lead vocal. He pitched it deliberately above Ruffin's comfortable range, forced him to strain for every single line. That desperation you hear in his voice, sleeping on her doorstep, begging, refusing to let her go, that's not just acting, that's a man physically working to hit notes that don't come easy to him. Underneath him, Eddie Bongo Brown's bongos, James Jamerson on a bass line almost as unhinged as Ruffin's vocal. And at the very top of the record, Uriel Jones pounding the bell of his ride cymbal while Jack Ashford whacks a tambourine like he's trying to start a fight. Here's the thing. This record wasn't just a hit. It was a coup. The Temptations' previous single, Get Ready, had been produced by Smokey Robinson and underperformed. Berry Gordy, impatient, handed the reins to Whitfield instead. When Ain't Too Proud to Beg outperformed it, Whitfield didn't just get to keep producing. He became the Temptations' main producer for years to come, and Smokey was out of the picture entirely. But if I have to cry to keep you, I don't mind. One single, recorded in a single January session, rearranged the entire hierarchy of who got to shape one of Motown's biggest groups. If you've ever watched somebody get pushed past what felt comfortable, only to find something more honest on the other side of it, you know that feeling. Ruffin hated parts of this session by most accounts. It's also considered some of the best work of his career. Number 9, Bernadette, Four Tops, 1967. February 1967. Number 4, pop. Number 3, R&B. Holland Dozier Holland wrote it, and Jamerson's bass line on this one is unlike almost anything else he ever recorded. He told writer Nelson George it had an Arabic feel, that he'd been studying African, Cuban, and Indian scales, and let that vocabulary bleed straight into a four-top single. Levi Stubbs sings it like a man bracing for the worst news of his life, and that famous false ending where everything drops out except the background vocals holding one long chord still catches first-time listeners off guard. Here's the part almost nobody knows. For years, people assumed Bernadette was a fictional name, just a vehicle for the song's desperation and devotion. It wasn't. Co-writer Lamont Dozier revealed decades later that there was a real woman behind it. Sometime in the late 60s, he was driving down Woodward Avenue in Detroit and spotted her, pushing a double stroller, another baby on her hip, years removed from whatever moment originally inspired him. He circled the block, took a second look, didn't stop the car. As far as he knows, to this day, she never found out she was the reason one of the most desperate, gorgeous songs in the Motown catalog exists. You're sitting there listening to a man beg a woman not to leave him, and the actual woman it's about never even heard it and connected the dots. Want to know the strangest part? This wasn't some deep cut. This was a top 5 pop hit, playing on every radio in the country about a person who had absolutely no idea she was famous. Number 8, You Can't Hurry Love, The Supremes, 1966. Number 1 pop, number 1 R&B. And this part still makes me laugh. Its 2-week run at number 1 is the exact reason the Beatles' Yellow Submarine never made it to the top of the charts that fall. Holland Dozier Holland wrote this one with a working title of "This Is Where I Came In" before they landed on the lyric that actually stuck. And the entire song opens with Jamerson's bouncing bass line riding right on top of Robert White's guitar stabs and Benny Benjamin's snare before Diana Ross has sung a single word. Some critics consider that intro the single most iconic Jamerson performance in his entire catalog, and that's saying something because we've already covered 4 of his bass lines tonight. Here's the thing about this one. It's gospel underneath the pop sheen. Lamont Dozier later said they were chasing a "you can't hurry God" feeling straight out of church, and it shows. That boom, 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 boom pattern Jamerson plays was specifically engineered to grab a teenager's attention on a cheap transistor radio speaker where most of the bottom end gets lost. Phil Collins covered it 16 years later, took it back to number 1 in the UK. He inscribed "Motown, we salute you" on the album sleeve. He knew exactly whose shoulders he was standing on. Some of y'all are nodding right now because you already know this bass line by heart, even if you never knew the man's name attached to it. I see you. Number 7. For Once in My Life, Stevie Wonder, 1968. Late 1968 into 1969. Number 2, pop. Number 2, R&B. Kept off the very top spot, ironically, by another Motown record we're going to get to before this is over. Here's what almost nobody remembers. This song was written back in 1965 as a slow, mournful, a ballad, and it sat around Motown for years, getting passed from singer to singer like nobody could figure out what to do with it. It got recorded and rejected or just ignored by half a dozen different artists. The Four Tops cut a version. The Temptations cut a version. When I've needed so long for once unafraid. Tony Bennett actually got the first chart placement with it, all the way back at number 91, a full year before Stevie's version existed. Then Stevie Wonder, barely 18 years old, decided to flip the entire mood of the song. Took it from a funeral march to a celebration. Berry Gordy hated it, thought it was wrong for the song, wrong for Stevie, and shelved the recording for nearly a year before finally agreeing to release it. Underneath Stevie's voice, Jamerson does something he almost never does. He plays a completely improvisational bass line where, by most musicians' count, no 2 bars repeat the same idea twice. Bassists still study this recording today as the clearest example of exactly how Jamerson's mind worked in real time. Here's what's wild. The song that finally beat it to number 1 that December was Marvin Gaye's "I Heard It Through the Grapevine." Same label, same year, same rhythm section underneath both records. Stay with me on this one because that exact song is coming up in a few minutes, and the story behind it is even messier than you think. Number 6, I Was Made to Love Her, Stevie Wonder, 1967. Summer of 1967. Number 2, pop. Number 1, R&B. Written by Stevie with his mother, Lula Mae Hardaway, alongside Sylvia Moy and Henry Cosby. And it's genuinely autobiographical about Stevie's first love back home, even though the opening line claims he was born in Little Rock. Because that's where co-writer Sylvia Moy was actually from. Here's the part that still blows people's minds. The bass line on this record is so inventive, so far ahead of anything a normal session player would attempt, that years later, when researchers and journalists started digging into exactly who played what on Motown's classic catalog, somebody actually disputed whether it was Jamerson at all. The claim got serious enough that producer Henry Cosby had to sign a sworn affidavit, a legal document, confirming on record that yes, it was James Jamerson's bass on that track. Think about that for a second. A man's signature playing was so good, decades after the fact, people assumed it had to be somebody else. And it gets worse for Jamerson, personally. Around this same era, touring musicians who went out on the road with Motown's reviews started complaining that his recorded parts were too difficult to replicate live. So Motown actually asked him to simplify what he played in the studio to make his own genius easier for other people to copy. You know what's worse than not getting credit for your own work? Getting asked to dumb it down so somebody else's mediocre version looks closer to the original. Number 5, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, I'm Yours, Stevie Wonder, 1970. June 1970. Number 3, Pop, number 1 R&B for 6 straight weeks. This one matters for a different reason than the others. By 1970, Stevie was 20 years old, and this was the very first record he ever produced entirely on his own. Start to finish, no committee, no assigned producer standing over him. It was a declaration, proof he didn't need Motown's assembly line to make a hit. And here's the quiet irony underneath all of it. The assembly line he was declaring independence from was the exact same Funk Brothers rhythm section he chose to keep using anyway. The same musicians who built Motown's sound in the first place were still the ones he trusted to help him step outside of it. This song also marked the debut of his backup singing group, including Syreeta Wright, who co-wrote the track and would go on to marry him not long after. Here's what gets me about this one. It's one of the most purely joyful records on this entire list, and it's also, in a way, a goodbye letter. Within 2 years, Stevie would leave the old Motown contract structure behind completely and step into the run of albums that made him a legend on his own terms. This is the sound of an artist outgrowing the room that raised him while still bringing the room's best musicians along for one more ride. If you've ever done everything right inside a system and then realized you were ready to build your own, you know that exact feeling. Number 4, I Heard It Through the Grapevine. Written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong back in 1966, first recorded by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Rejected. Berry Gordy didn't think it was strong enough. Then recorded by Marvin Gaye in early 1967 with the full Funk Brothers treatment and a Detroit Symphony Orchestra string arrangement layered on top. Gordy rejected that one too, so Whitfield, furious, turned to a brand new Motown signing, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and finally got his record released. September 1967, number 1 R&B, number 2 pop. Biggest selling Motown single up to that point in the company's history. But Whitfield wasn't done fighting for Marvin's version. He buried it on an album track instead, where it sat quietly for almost a year until a Chicago radio DJ started playing it off the LP, and the phones at the station lit up like nobody had ever heard anything like it. Gordy finally relented, released it as a single in October 1968. It went to number 1, stayed there for 7 straight weeks, became for a time the single biggest selling record in Motown's entire history. Here's what's wild. That's the same Funk Brothers rhythm section playing on all 3 versions. The exact same musicians in the exact same Studio A, building 3 completely different emotional moods out of the same chord changes and the same bass line for 3 different lead vocalists. Twice rejected before it finally became the biggest record the label had ever put out. Some of y'all heard the Marvin Gaye version first. Some of y'all heard Gladys Knight's first. You probably already know which side you're on, and I bet the comments are about to prove it. Number 3, Reach Out, I'll Be There. 4 tops, 1966. August 1966, number 1 pop. Here's a detail most people never clock. That galloping percussion sound driving the whole record, that's producer and songwriter Norman Whitfield, off duty from his usual role, hitting a tambourine with no bells using drumsticks. Not a percussionist with a standard instrument, a producer improvising in the room because the sound in his head didn't exist yet. Underneath that, Jamerson's bass line, which he later described to author Nelson George as having an Arabic feel, built off scales he'd been studying outside the Motown pop machine entirely. Richard Pistol Allen on drums instead of Benny Benjamin this time around. Robert White, Eddie Willis, and Joe Messina all on guitar together. And here's the part that gets me every time. Lawrence Payton, one of the 4 tops, heard the finished backing track for the first time and thought something had gone wrong. After they laid their vocals down, Duke Fakir straight up told Berry Gordy, quote, "Don't do this to us. This record has no anchor. We've got momentum. We're riding the crest. Don't screw up." The men singing on it didn't believe in it. Gordy released it anyway. It took 4 weeks to crack the top 10, then 2 more weeks to hit number 1. It became the 4 Tops' signature song, the one thing they're remembered for above everything else they ever recorded. You know what's worse than nobody believing in your work? And the people whose voices are literally on the record not believing in it either, and being completely wrong. Number 2, My Girl, The Temptations, 1965. March 1965. Number 1 pop, number 1 R&B, the very first number one on Motown's R&B chart after it came back from a 15-month hiatus. Written by Smokey Robinson and Ronald White for David Ruffin specifically, who just joined the group the year before. And here's what nobody tells you about that opening. The one everybody on earth can hum within half a second of hearing it. That bass and guitar intro, it wasn't written into the arrangement at all. James Jamerson and guitarist Robert White were just warming up before the actual take started. Loosening their fingers, Robert White stood up, started walking around the studio, playing this little ascending guitar line almost as a joke. Smokey Robinson, in the control room, heard it through the glass and stopped everything. "That's going on the record," he said. A warm-up. An accident of two musicians killing time before the real work began. And it became, by most measures, the most recognizable 4 bars in Motown's entire catalog. I guess you said what? Smokey's told the story for decades. He can be in a country where nobody speaks a word of English, and the crowd starts cheering before he sings a single syllable, the second they hear that bass line start. In 2017, the Library of Congress added "My Girl" to the National Recording Registry. Culturally, historically, aesthetically significant, they called it. They were talking about a record built on a bass intro that 2 underpaid session musicians weren't even trying to write. You probably already know this song word for word. I bet most of you didn't know. It almost didn't exist at all. Number 1, What's Going On? Marvin Gaye, 1971. Recorded June 1970, released January 1971. Number 1 R&B for 5 straight weeks, number 2 pop. By this point in the story, you already know what James Jamerson's bass meant to this sound. This is the session where it almost didn't happen at all. Marvin needed Jamerson for the session, needed that specific feel, nobody else's. Only Jamerson wasn't booked, wasn't even at the studio. He was a few blocks away in a bar, deep into a bottle, by most accounts barely able to sit up on the stool. Gaye went and found him himself, brought him back to Hitsville, and Jamerson, too unsteady to sit, let alone stand, laid down flat on his back on the studio floor and played that entire bass line right there on the wood, looking up at the ceiling. It is, by wide agreement among bassists, one of the greatest recorded performances on the instrument in the history of popular music, played by a man who couldn't physically sit up. Here's the part that still gets me every single time. Benny Benjamin, the drummer who'd been right there beside Jamerson since the very beginning of this whole story, since Shotgun, since Going to a Go-Go, since My Girl, wasn't in the room for this one. He'd already been gone for over a year by the time this session happened. A stroke in 1969, after a decade carrying half of Motown's heartbeat on his shoulders, 43 years old. Berry Gordy heard the finished track and called it the worst thing he'd ever heard in his life, refused to release it. Marvin went on strike and wouldn't record another note for Motown until it came out. It finally dropped in January 1971, sold out 100,000 copies in less than a week, and became at the time the fastest selling single in the company's history. James Jamerson would keep playing for another 13 years after this. He'd die in 1983, 47 years old, broke, largely uncredited, bitter about everything he never got. It wasn't until the sleeve of this very album, The Incomparable James Jamerson, that his name showed up on a major Motown release for the very first time. Two men. One drunk, lying on a studio floor giving everything he had left. One already in the ground a year before the tape even rolled. And together, with the rest of that band nobody bothered to name, they built the sound that's been playing at every cookout, every wedding, every slow dance you've ever been to, for 60 years running.